That's,
teachers.
I think, probably the most important part of this book is when you start looking at education over the last decade or two, what you realize is that CRT is just the cover up. What the crime is that they're failing all of our kids, and in particular the poor and minority kids. The cover up is these various excuses they have that conceal it. And CRT is obviously the big one because they go and they say, well, tests are racist. So yeah, all the black kids in our district, or many of them, are scoring very poorly, but it's not our fault. Actually, tests are racist, and objectivity isn't real, and wanting the right answer is an attribute of whiteness. And so, I have the documents where the consultants are going from district to district saying these exact phrases. It's an insane conspiracy theory. It's not something that my friends who are liberal, they don't say that showing up on time is an attribute of white culture. Like, can you imagine someone saying that? I've never heard a black person say that. It's so bizarre. But when you look at it in the context of how that serves the teachers, it basically says, oh, it's not your fault for letting down these kids. You didn't really fail them. It's just this massive conspiracy where they're actually doing fine, even though it doesn't manifest in getting the right answer.
So I want to go back to New York now, because you kind of make the case that essentially coronavirus, this idea of never let a good crisis go to waste, was basically used as a way to push some of these radical agendas further. So we've talked about that a bit, but what about how that actually extended past New York? You kind of suggesting that New York was the epicenter of this?
Yeah, I mean, the superintendent at the time, Richard Carrienza, said that phrase repeatedly, never let a good crisis go to waste. And they have these associations through which the superintendents from the big cities coordinate. And he got together with the rest of them, and pretty soon you see the same ideas happening elsewhere. So those ideas were like, we wanted to get rid of tests already. Like, the teachers always oppose what they call standardized testing, or they call it high stakes testing. It's all made up. It's just a test that helps figure out, like, are the schools doing a good job? But they've always wanted to get rid of that. Under coronavirus, they did, because they said, well, you can't go to there's no school, so you can't do a test. But they also wanted to do a number of other things. Like, they wanted to move away from grades like A, B, C, D, F, to another system that they call standards-based assessments, which is basically grading on a 1 to 4 scale. And so if you think about it, the top on a 1 to 4 scale is really 75% and up. And so what they've done there is they've turned a C plus into an A. And so they have all these different schemes that they had always been wanting to do for like 10 years. And during coronavirus, you see them ramming them through all at once. We can't do the tests, and therefore we can't have gifted and talented and magnet schools because there's no tests. We're not going to do letter grades because a lot of kids are just being totally failed by remote learning. They're all failing, or they're not even showing up. So let's let them convert their D's to a pass fail, or their C's to an A using standards-based assessments. So there was all these kind of things that were serving the interests of the teachers unions and the administrators, in the sense that they just concealed that they were failing these kids, and they started ramming them through during coronavirus. And they were very explicit that they intended to use coronavirus to do things that would be permanent. It was essentially evil what they did to the kids. I mean, even to this day, 50% of the kids in Los Angeles are truant. They're just missing. They don't come to school anymore. We lost them.
We live in an era of censorship and disinformation, and it can be really hard to know what's true and what's false in this information climate. To get honest information and insights you can trust, join us on Epoch TV. You can sign up for your 14-day free trial at ept.ms/free trial Jan. That's ept.ms/free trial JAN.
I just saw the headline about that actually on our front page this morning. I mean, it's stunning. That's a huge school system.
Yeah. And you just think about this kids in the Bronx or whatever, and they've got maybe a single mom with many siblings, and the mom's got to go to work. And these teachers were just like, no, we won't show up to work, so just deal with it. And during, they had these rallies in New York City, the teachers unions did, working with the Democratic Socialists of America. And, they have the Randy Weingarten, the head of the union, with her arm draped around Al Sharpton. And like they have time to do racial activism. They have time to do these job shakedowns where they're demanding, higher pay and things like that. They're willing to meet, engage in these crowded protests. What they're not doing is willing to do is go to school with a couple of children. And they were willing to harm kids to get their way.